we're on the topic of timeline when it comes to EVs. We are seeing a pretty dramatic shift, I would say, with at least at the very bare minimum, the concept of electric vehicles within our, popular culture. We've discussed, individual companies like Lucid and Neo and Workhorse in the past, but what does this broad EV adoption kind of look like in the coming years and in that sector?
Electric vehicle adoption, in my opinion, is going to accelerate because of the current geopolitical climate and macroeconomic climate. Yes, battery costs are going up because lithium, the raw input prices are going up, the raw metals. But what you have to remember, there's a couple things to keep in mind here. One, raw input prices are not a major influencer of costs for an electric vehicle. Lithium prices increased by 13% per year throughout the 2010s. And also throughout the 2010s, battery pack prices, lithium-ion battery pack prices decreased by more than 90%. So you had a 13% annual increase in the cost of lithium, yet a cumulative 90% plus decrease in the cost of lithium-ion batteries. That tells you right on its face that the raw input prices do not drive or influence the trajectory in a meaningful manner of lithium-ion batteries, of the electric vehicle batteries. So what does? Well, what does influence the price of batteries is R&D in chemistry, R&D in material science, economies of scale, automated manufacturing. Those things are the drivers of lithium-ion battery manufacturing costs. And that's why, despite a 13% per year increase in lithium prices, lithium-ion battery prices dropped more than 90% because we had a lot of R&D in chemistry. How do we make these things? We had a lot of R&D in material science. How do we combine these materials more cost effectively? We had a lot of economies of scale kicking in. The production lines got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and we added some weight there, so we got to benefit from the economies of scale. And now we're starting to leverage automation to make these things also more cost effective to produce. So those drivers are only going to get bigger and more powerful and stronger over the next several years. So yes, raw input prices for batteries, for electric vehicles are increasing today, but one, that price increase is temporary. It's only going to happen in 2022. In 2023, raw input prices are going to go back to declining. And two, the R&D in science and chemistry and material science, the economies of scale, those factors are going to continue to drive costs lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. So I think that electric vehicle costs, clean energy costs in general, they've been on this big downtrend. They're having this anomalous spike in 22, and then they're going to go back to their, long-term downtrend. That this is not the beginning of a reversal. This is an anomalous spike back to the downtrend. So that's the first big point on electric vehicles and why I think that electric vehicle adoption is actually going to accelerate. The second point is that it's all relative. Electric vehicle costs are going up today because every cost is going up today. Okay? So when you look across the board at the electric vehicle price increases that you're seeing, well, first off, the IEA just came out with a study that said if raw input prices remain where they are today, then by the end of the year, lithium-ion battery pack prices are going to increase by 15%.
Okay.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
But put it in context. Oil is up 50% this year. Natural gas has doubled this year. 100% gain, 50% gain. Lithium-ion batteries, 15% gain in 2022 is chump change. It's nothing. So yes, lithium-ion battery prices are going up. Yes, electric vehicle prices are going up. But guess what? They're going up much less than fossil fuel costs. So it's all relative. We're in an inflationary environment. Costs are going up across the board. Demand is going to shift to the things where cost is going up less intensely. And that's in electric vehicles. It's also in solar. Per recent research and per industry exec kind of commentary from the previous quarter, it looks like solar costs are up about 20% year to date. Again, that's less than the 50% increase in oil. That's less than the 100% increase in natural gas. So Solar prices are increasing. Absolutely correct, true, but they're increasing much less intensely than fossil fuel costs. So I think there's a demand shift towards solar despite the price increases because, relatively speaking, they're getting cheaper than the alternatives. So that's another reason why I think electric vehicle adoption and clean energy adoption can accelerate in the midst of the current geopolitical climate because their inflation is less intense than the inflation being seen everywhere else. And that is because that is a direct byproduct of the secular cost decline drivers in those technologies. The R&D in chemistry, the R&D in materials and science, the economies of scale. These technologies have very positive learning rates. The more we make of them, the more we learn how to cost effectively produce them, the lower their costs go. Those things have great learning rates. Fossil fuels don't. Consequently, the inflationary pressures in fossil fuels are much more intense today than they are in electric vehicles, in solar, in hydrogen. And to that end, there's going to be a demand shift towards heavier usage of those items. And that's why I think EV stocks are pretty solid bet here. Same with all clean tech stocks. I think this is kind of like a critical inflection point for adoption of those technologies. So that was a very long-winded way of answering your question, but the short of it is that I think electric vehicle adoption is going to accelerate in 23, 24, 25 at rates that the market is not expecting. And because it's going to be above expected growth, EV stocks are going to outperform in those years.
Thanks for watching HGI Clips. For the full episode, head on over to our sister channel at Hypergrowth Investing by clicking the link in the description or listen to the podcast on any of your favorite streaming platforms. We make new episodes every Wednesday, so make sure to check it out and subscribe to never miss any of Luke's Hypergrowth insights.